So today we are starting from the Java inheritance. What is that inheritance? In Java, it is possible to inherit attributes and methods from one class to another class. We group the inheritance concept into two categories. Basically, inheritance is basically the thing that in the previous session we have learned about the abstract keyword. What is that abstract keyword? Abstract, using that abstract keyword, we can make a class as abstract class. We can make a class as an abstract class, and we cannot create object for that abstract class. Once we have mentioned that class is an abstract class using the abstract keyword, then what will happen, we cannot create the object for the abstract class because that class is an abstract class. So if we have declared in the abstract class, if we have declared any instance variable or the class attribute, that time we all know that if any in any class, if we are declaring any class attribute without creating the object, we cannot access that particular class attribute. But if I am declaring any class attribute in any abstract class, we cannot create the object, and we without object we cannot access that instance variable. At that time, what I need to do, we need to inherit, or that we need to extend all the properties, whatever the properties or the attributes and the methods, whatever the properties we have declared within that abstract class, we need to inherit or we need to extract the property to the another class. After that, that creating that in which class we are inheriting the property, we are extracting the property for that particular class, using we are creating the object. Using that object we can access that particular abstract class block or that attribute and the methods. So this is that, that is the basically inheritance. That is the same thing in Java, that inheritance is possible. Basically we are inheriting the property from another, from one class to the another class. And in Java, there are two class. One is the subclass, another one is the superclass. Which one is the superclass, which one is the subclass? Basically that abstract class, I'm giving you the example as by using that abstract class. That abstract class is the, that time is the superclass. And that sub, which one is the subclass? That class is inheriting or extracting the property of that particular abstract class, that is the subclass. That means the abstract class is became the parent class, and the subclass or the child class, that class is inheriting the property of that particular abstract class. That, and to inherit from a class, use the extend keyword. When we are inheriting from a class to the we are inheriting, suppose we have two class, class A and class B. Class A having some attribute, class A having some attributes, and that attribute we are inheriting to the class B. And that time, that means we are inheriting the property from a class to the to the another class. And how can I do that? Using the extends keyword. Now coming to the example, here, look at this. Class vehicle, we have declared a class. This is not the abstract class because we haven't declared that class is an as that abstract keyword we haven't declared just before the class. This is not mandatory that we can inherit the property of an abstract class only. We can inherit the inherit the class property, a normal class property also. This is not mandatory. ठीक है? Okay, no class vehicle. A class we have declared, and that class is not an abstract class because we haven't mentioned that abstract keyword just before declaring that class. That means this class is a normal class. And within that class block, we have declared a class attribute, and we are using a protected access modifier. That protected, it stand for, what is that protected keyword? Can anyone just tell me? Hello? Can anyone just tell me what is that protected keyword? When I am declaring any in the time of declaring that variable, I am using that protected access modifier. That means using that protected access. What is the work for that particular protected access modifier? Hello, can anyone just tell me? Pranay, Sahil, Kurja, anyone? Hello.
Hello, sir.
Yeah,
Hello.
can anyone just tell me what is that protected? What is that protected? When I'm using that protected here, what is that part? What is that purpose? What will be happening when I'm using in the time of declaring that variable? When I'm using that protected, what will be happen in that time?
Actually, protected declare when a variable as a protected, then only the class is access those variable.
Basically, protected. You are like that protected that you are talking about. That was the private access modifier. When you are using that protected access modifier, that time what will happen within that package? That particular attribute can be accessible outside the package, it's not possible. And when you are using that, you are talking about when that was the private access modifier. When you are using that private access modifier, that time outside the class it's not possible. Look at this here, I have declared that private here. I'm coming into that. So basically protected string brand equals to 4. That string variable we have declared, that is a class attribute, because that variable we have declared within the class block, not in any kind of method on anything anywhere else. So this is an instance variable, and we all know when in we are declaring an instance variable. For accessing that instance variable without creating the object for the class, we cannot access the particular instance variable. And another thing, public void honk, that method we have declared, and that method is void type. That means that particular method does not have any particular return type like in string, char, float, like that. So we can return into that particular method, we can return any type of data. It can be a string, it can be a int, it can be anything that as per your use, as per your need, you can pass any type of data into that particular method. So what I'm doing, within that method, system.out.println, and that message we are printing. Now that vehicle class is completed. Another class we are declaring, class car. Okay, class car. And that class car we have declared, and that car class is extending. Using the extend keyword, we can do that inheritance, right? So we are using that extends vehicle. That means class car is extending the property of that vehicle class. Now when I am extending, using we are doing the inheritance. Why? That using that extend keyword, when we are inheriting the property of that vehicle class to the car class, that means that variable, that method now comes into that particular car class. Into that, now that string brand, that brand variable now come into that class, and that hong method also come into that particular car class. Now another thing what we have done, private string model name equals to mustang. Private string model name equals to mustang. A private variable we have declared. Look at the difference, that difference we are talking about, that protected and the private. What is the difference? Everyone please try to remember that particular thing. What is the difference between the private and the protected? Because very important question. This is a very important question. Most of the interviewer can ask this question, that what is the difference between the private and the protected? Protected, when we are using, that means within the package that particular protected data can be accessible, but outside the package it's not possible. And that when I am using that private access modifier, that means it's become private. Private means within that class that particular data can be accessible, outside the class it is not possible. And so private string model name equals to mustang. That string variable we have declared, that mod variable name is the model name, and mustang is the value. Public static void main. Now in that vehicle class there is no main method. I have already told you, when we are working with the multiple classes, in that time, one of the classes there should be that main method we need to declare. Otherwise, in the time of the execution, that Java JDK will look for the main method until and unless that main method is not getting by Java, it will not execute your program. So in that class car, we are declaring the main method. After that, we are creating the object for that car class. Why I am creating that object of that class car? Because look at this private string model name. This is another class attribute, and this is, or you can say this is an for accessing the class as that class attribute. So ruler new car constructor. That is the basic syntax of creating object creation, class name. Then you need to give the object name PCS. That means this is a constructor, because this that round basis is the symbol of the method, and that car name of that method is matched with the car that class. That means this is a constructor, because that constructor is a special type of method that having a same name with the class name. So this is the syntax. Now what we are doing, car my car equals that my car dot honk. Using the object name, we are accessing that particular method, honk method, that is on the vehicle class, having that method. And we have inherited the property of vehicle class into the class car. That means that class car is became the owner of the vehicle class property. So we can, when that class car is became the only owner of that property of vehicle class, now using that object of that class car, we can access that particular method, that home method is in the vehicle class. So my car dot home, we are calling that home method using the object of that car, using the object of the car class. Now system out dot println my car dot brand. Where is that brand variable? That brand variable also we have declared into the vehicle class. Look at this, that is protected. Plus we are doing a concatenation. Then within the double quotes I have given some space. That means this, that space is will treat as a string, because we all know within the double quotes whatever we are declaring, whatever we are writing, either it can be space, it can be number, it can be special character, it can be symbol, anything, whatever we are writing within the double quote, that will be printed in your screen as it is. Plus we are concatenating my car, that object name dot model name. Look at this, where is that model name? Model name that is in the class car attribute, that is a private variable. And how we can access that? This is a private, that means, and we are calling that variable within the car class only. Outside the car class we cannot access that private access variable data. So it will give you an output that, first of all, I'm calling the honk method. That means that will give you an output that toot toot. And another one is the mycar dot brand variable plus space plus mycar dot model name. That brand variable is for Ford, and that for the model name is the Mustang. Is that, yeah, this is the inheritance thing. Is that clear to all of you now?
Yes, sir.
So everyone just do one thing, execute that example. Execute that example.
Done, sir.
Everyone done?
Yes, sir.
Why and when to use that inheritance? It is useful for code reusability. Reuse attribute and method of an existing class when you create a new class. Tip, also take a look. No problem. The final keyword. If you don't want other class to inherit from a class, use the final keyword. That final, basically, that what is that final keyword? We all know that when that variable we are declaring, in the time of the variable declaration, when I am using that final keyword, in the next time, once we have declared any variable using that final keyword, after that, if I wanted to, if anyone want to override the value of that particular variable, that is not possible, because using that final keyword we are what we are doing, we are basically mm, finalizing the variable value. Once finalize the value, then after that we cannot change the value, or we cannot override, or we cannot give any new value to that particular variable. So that final keyword basically in the time of that I was talking about that variable declaration, but here we are making a class as a final. Why? And that time what will be happen when I am making a class as a final? That time, look at this. Suppose we have declared a class final class vehicle, and having some attribute, and that any that method, whatever you want to declare, that you can do into that class. After that, class car extending that vehicle class. Now that class car is extending the vehicle class, the vehicle, just because the vehicle class is then final class, that time you are not able to inherit that particular class. That means when you are making as a class as final class, that final class you cannot inherit it. That class cannot be inherit. That is the basically the final class. That will that time inherit from final vehicle class main extend vehicle. That is that kind of error you will get, because you have already made that class as a final class. Once you have made that class as a final, that time that vehicle class or any class that you are making as final, you cannot inherit the property of that particular class to the another class. Now, coming to the Java polymorphism. Polymorphism means many forms, and it occurs when we have many classes that are related to each other by inheritance. Like we specified in the previous chapter in the inheritance, let us inherit attributes and method from another class. Polymorphism use those methods to perform different tasks. This allows us to perform a single action in a different way. Coming to the polymorphism, polymorphism means that many forms, and it occurs. We have many class that are related to each other. Coming to the example, now I'm coming to the example. Class animal, a class we have declared that class name is animal class. Public void animal sound, and that in that particular animal class we have declared a method that is public void animal sound. That is a void method, and within that method we are passing a normal message that animal class is closed. Now class pig is extending the property of animal class. Now that animal sound method is coming into the pig class. Another thing, look at this, that particular pig class also having a method with the same name, that is animal sound method. That means when after inheriting the property of the animal class to the pig class, notice one thing, into that pig class there are now two methods with the same name. One from the animal class, and one another one is already present in the pig class. Now into that pig class, after in extending or after doing the inheritance, all the properties comes into the pig class. That means that animal sound is also here. That means now pig class all they have, it's have own animal sound method, and that animal sound is in the animal method, animal class, that comes into the pig class. Now try to notice one thing, that how can I differentiate that? How can I differentiate that? But that method, that two method, we have passed two different messages. Look at that message that I have declared within the animal sound method, which is in the animal class, that animal makes a sound. And that into the pig class, that animal sound method, we have passed that another message that pig says that one. How can I differentiate that? In the time of calling of that particular method, when I am calling that method, that animal sound method, that time how Java will identify which one you are calling actually. Because into that peak class, there are two methods with the same name. There are now after doing the inheritance, there are two methods with the same name. When there are two methods with the same name, how Java can do the differentiate that which one you are calling? You are calling that which one is available in the animal sound or which one already exists in the click class. Which one? So basically how we can differentiate that? Let me come to the next topic. Class dog, another one. Class dog extends animal also into that dog class. Also there is also that animal sound method is there, and it is inheriting the property of that animal class. That animal class also having that animal sound method. Now already that pig class also having that same situation is in the dog class also, like the same, like in that pig class is extending the property of that animal class. That means that animal sound, that method with the same name, there are two methods with the same name. In the same situation in the dog class also, the dog class also having its own animal sound method. After doing the inheritance of animal class method animal sound, now dog class also having two method with the same name, two method with the same name. So obviously I can using the object of that pick class, just in the previous example, whatever we have done, if you are following that particular step, obviously we can using the object, we can call that particular animal sound method. But which one you are calling actually, that how you can differentiate that? We can differentiate. There is a little bit thing declared class main, that notice one thing, that animal class don't have that main method, pig class don't have that main method, and the dog class also don't have that main method. We are working with a multiple method, so one of the methods should have, there should be that main method, and that method whatever wherever the in which class is having that main method, that class is the actual main class. Into that main class we will create the object for all the classes, and we will call that particular, using the object we can call into that particular main method, main class. So class main, another class we have declared, that class is name is main, and into that main class we are declaring the main method, that public static void main string args, and within that we are creating the object of each and every classes. First of all, we are creating the object for the animal class. Animal, my animal equals to new animal constructor. We are creating the object for the animal class. Now just because that pig class having two name with the same method, so with two name, same name with the two method, and dog class also having two methods with the same name. And one thing, that animal class is the property of that animal class is inheriting by pig class and the dog class. That means that animal class is the parent class or the super class. Just because that pig class and the dog class is inheriting the property of animal class, that means that two class are the subclass or the child class of the animal class. Animal class is the parent class, pig class and the dog class is the child class of animal class. Now what we can do, just because we are in the polymorphism thing, so we are doing the polymorphism. Polymorphism means is the many forms basically. That means, and the many forms means here, what is that many forms? Because in the pig class there are two methods with the same name, in the dog class also two methods with the same name. That means many forms is available in within that particular class with the method with the same name, more than one method with the same name. Basically that is the many forms. And we are doing a little bit different in the time of the object creation of the two child class for the pig class and for the dog class. Just because the dog class and the pig class is the child class of animal class, in that time what we can do, using the parent class name, we can create the object in the time of the polymorphism. And how we can do that? Look at this, that animal, when we are creating the object for the animal class, that was the same thing, animal class name, then you need to give an object name equals to new animal class constructor. But in the time when we are creating the object for the child class of the two child class, that pig and the dog, we are using the class name. In the place of the class name we are using the parent class name, that is the animal class, animal class name. Then we are giving a name to that object equals to, but in the time of the constructor we will use that particular class name. We are creating the object basically, we are using the parent class name, but we are creating the object for the peak class. We are creating the object for the peak class. That's why we need to use that particular class constructor. We are creating the object for the peak class, so we are using the peak class constructor here. Animal parent class name, my peak is the object name equals to new keyword, then peak class constructor. Because why peak class constructor we are using? Because we are creating the object for the peak class. Now again, we need to create the dog class object also in the same way using the parent class name. So we are using the parent class name, and here the parent class name is animal. Animal, my dog is the object name equals to new dog class constructor. Now we have created the object for the different class, for the animal class, for the pig class, for the dog class. Now for the three each and every class there are separate object name. Now we are what we are doing, my animal dot animal sound. That means using the my animal is the name of the object of animal class. My pig is the object name of the pig class. My dog is the object name for the dog class. Now if I am now when I am using that object name, we can mention that we are calling that particular animal sound method which is in the animal class. Using the pick class object name, we can call that particular pick class object, pick class that method with that animal sound method. And using the dog class object name, we can call that particular animal sound method which is in the dog class. Okay, is it clear, everyone? Hello, is
Yes,
it
sir.
clear? Okay. Now everyone do one thing, that practice that one. Everyone clear now? Anyone having any issue, please let me know. So don't hesitate. I will
Is
explain
that
that again.
is that
No
example of
problem.
method overriding?
No, this is the this is can method overriding, or you can say that method overriding is the basically that polymorphism.
It's runtime polymorphism actually. Example
Yeah,
of
yeah. This is the polymorphism, not runtime. This is the method overloading. Method overload. Basically, that name means multiple method with the same name. Polymorphism is stand for the method overriding and method overloading. Everyone, please practice that particular one, and let me know when the first of all code that part. Then let me know, and I will scroll down, and then you can go to the next part.
Done, sir.
The whole program is done, or should I scroll down to the next one?
My side is whole program is done.
And rest of the candidate, everyone done?
Done, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Now the Java inner class. In Java, it is also possible to nest classes. A class within a class. The purpose of nest classes
Yeah,
is
sir, actually this done
that
yesterday.
inner class is completed.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Private inner class.
No, no, no. It's not complete.
Okay. That private inner class, unlike a regular class, an inner class can be private or protected. If you don't want outside object to access the inner class, declare the class as private. What is that private inner class? Class, outer class, integer x equals to 10. With this is a class attribute we have declared. Under that class, we are declaring a class that is an inner class, and that inner class we making as private. And we all know what is the difference between the private and the protected. And within that private uh, inner class, we have declared that class attribute. Now, what I'm trying to do, public class main, public static void main. That means another class we have declared, that class name is main, and within that class we are declaring the main method, that is public static void main string args. Now we are creating the object name for the outer class. Outer class my outer equals to new outer class constructor. And we all know that without creating the outer class object, we cannot create the inner class object, because in the time of the inner class object creation, that outer class object name is mandatory. So outer class, and what is the syntax of creating the inner class object? First of all, we need to give the name of outer class. Here that name we are using as outer class, but you can use any different name also, like the same thing, that the class or name can be anything. That class can be, my name can be anything. Here I am given that outer class name as outer class. So outer class name dot, we are creating the object for the inner class, so that inner class name equal, then my inner is the name of the object. You know, when you are creating the object, that time you need to give your object a name, equals to my outer is the outer class object name dot new inner class constructor. So basically, what is the syntax of inner class object creation? Outer class name dot inner class name, then object name equals to outer class object name dot new keyword, then the inner class constructor. System out dot println my inner dot y. That means my inner dot y plus my outer dot x. What will be the output? Can anyone tell me? Hello. What will be the output? I am calling using that inner class object name. We are calling the y method, instance variable, and outer class object name. We are calling that x variable that I have declared within the outer class. So what will be the output? If when
15,
yes,
15.
15.
others, others, what will be the output?
15, sir.
Everyone 15.
Yes, sir.
No.
15.
Look at this. What is that access modifier?
Private.
That means that class is become private. And what is stand for private? What is that? When I'm declaring that private access modifier, who can access that particular one? Who can access that particular one? This is a very important thing. Try to remember that one. Private, when you are declaring within the class only, that can be accessible. When you are declaring that private within the class, it can be accessible, but outside the class, it is not. That in private, inner class is in the outer class. That outer class is a different class. That class main is the different class, and that we are calling that particular private inner class in the different class. And we all know that when we are declaring anything in that private, anything, that method, that variable, that class, if I am declaring that as private, that time outside the class that cannot be accessible. And we are doing the same thing, that same mistake. We are accessing that particular private class outside the class because that inner class is available in the outer class, but we are trying to call that particular inner class attribute within the another class, so it will generate you an error. That means when you are working with the inner class, that inner class you cannot make as private, it will generate you an error. Now, coming to the static inner class. An inner class can also be static, which means that you can access it without creating an object of the outer class. That means without creating, when you are like the previous example, the way you are declaring that particular inner class as private, you can make that inner class as static also. How? And when you are declaring, and what is the advantage when you are declaring your inner class as static? What will be the advantage? Why you will declare that as static? Class, outer class, and within that we have declared a class attribute, and within that we are declaring the inner class. That means we are nesting the class, nested class, basically static class inner class. That static keyword we are using in the time of declaring that inner class. Now just we are declared that keyword, so that class became a static. Int y equals to 5. This is the class attribute of that particular inner class. Now that part is completed. Public class main, another class we have declared. Public static void main we have declared. We are creating the object. Look at this. We are creating the object directly for the inner class. We are creating the object directly for the inner class. How? In the previous example, we have learned that in the time whenever we are going to create the object for the inner class, in that time that outer class name, object name is needed. But here we are directly creating the object for the static inner class. Why that class is become static? That's because we have declared that static keyword, so that class is become static. When I am declaring that inner class as static, that time without creating the outer class object, we can directly create the object for the inner class. How? Outer class name dot inner class name, then object name equals to new keyword outer class dot inner class constructor. Here we are not giving any in outer class object name because that inner class is a static class. This is the basic difference. Now system out of println my inner is the inner class object name dot y, that y is in the inner class, that is a class attribute we are calling. Is that clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay, execute that example.
Done, sir.
Is it done, everyone? Hello? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So basically that example is the access outer class from the inner class. One advantage of inner class is that they can access attribute and methods of a outer class. How? Class outer class. We have declared a class that is an outer class. A class attribute I have declared. Integer is the value of the variables that inner now public int my inner method. Within that inner class, one method we have declared, that method name is my inner method, and that particular method having a return type that is integer type. That means that method can only return integer type of data. And within that inner method, within that inner class inner method, we are returning a integer data that is x, and that x is where that x I have declared that x is the class attribute of outer class. That we are returning that particular x I am returning within that inner class method. That method name is inner my inner method. Now that part is completed. Outer class inner class is completed. Basically what I am returning, I am returning the outer class attribute within that inner class using the method public class main. A main class I have declared, and within that I am declaring the main method, that public static void main string args. After within that main method block, I am creating the object for the outer class. Why I am creating the object? Because that inner class we haven't declared as static. If I am declaring that class as static, that time without creating the object for the outer class, we can create the object for the inner class. But here I haven't declared that is a static class. So outer class, my outer equals to new outer class. So basically my outer is the outer class object name. Now outer class name dot inner class name, then object name equals to my outer, that is the object name for the outer class dot new keyword, then inner class constructor. System.out dot println my inner, using the my inner class object name dot my inner method we are calling, and that will return you that x, and that x is returning that 10. This is how we can access that outer class. Is that clear? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Okay, execute that one. একটু বাকি। না, একটু বাকি। দুটো switch।
Done, sir.
Everyone done? Yes? Everyone done?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I'm going to the next topic. Java abstraction, abstract class and method. Data abstraction is the process of hiding certain details and showing only essential information to the user. Abstraction can be achieved with either abstract class or interfaces. You know the interfaces, it's okay. There is another separate topic for the interface. The abstract keyword is a non-access modifier used for class and method. Abstract class is a restricted class that cannot be used to create object. To access it, it must be inherited from the another class. In the previously that abstract in the time of that abstraction, we have learned abstract method that can only be used in an abstract class and it does not have a body. The body is provided by the subclasses. Basically, what is that abstract? Abstract is a keyword that is a non-access modifier. There is two type of access modifier, access modifier and the non-access modifier. That basically that abstract keyword is the non-access modifier, and whenever you are in the time of declaring the class, if you are using that abstract non-access modifier, that means you are making that class as an abstract class, and for that class we cannot create the object. And whatever, and if you are declaring within that abstract class, you can declare this abstract method. In the time declaring the method, in the time of declaring the method, if you are using that abstract keyword, that means you are making that means you are making that method as abstract method. And remember one thing, only a abstract class can contain a abstract method. If you want, suppose you have declared a method, a normal you have declared a class that is a normal class you have declared, and like the previous in the previously we have learned that how to declare the normal class, that public class abcd, whatever the name you can give. Within that normal class, if you want to declare that abstract method, that is not possible because only a abstract class can contain a abstract method. That means you can create or you can declare a abstract method within that abstract class only. If you want to declare any abstract method within the normal class, that is not possible in Java. And the another one thing, once you have declared that method as abstract class, what that method does not have any body. That body will be provided by the subclass. That means what is the subclass? Suppose in the previous example we have learned that that abstract class, we are making a class as abstract class. That means we cannot create object for the abstract class. But if I am declaring any class attribute within that abstract class, we all know that without creating the object, we cannot access that class attribute. But this is that class is an abstract class. How can I make that? How can I use that class attribute? That time we need to inherit the property of the abstract class. Until and unless we are not inheriting the property of that abstract class, we cannot access that abstract class attribute. And another one thing, that abstract class method, that abstract method does not have any body. That method you will declare, you have to declare, but that body will not be there. That class, that subclass is inheriting the property of abstract class, that body for that abstract method will be provided into that abstract class, into the subclass. Look at now come into the now come into the sir একটু আস্তে sir. Now come into the example abstract class animal public abstract void animal sound method, public void sleep method. Look at this abstract class we have declared, abstract class animal we have declared. Within that abstract class we are declaring a method, a abstract method, public method, that is an abstract class. We haven't declared the body for that. And public void sleep, this is not the abstract method because we haven't declared that abstract keyword just before declaring that method. That means that method is a normal method. Just because that method is a normal method, that's why look at this, that method having that body using the curly braces starting from here to the ending here. That is the body of that that normal method, and within the body we have declared system.out.println that message. From the example above, it is not possible to create an object of the animal class. Animal obj equals to new animal will generate you an error because this is an abstract class. To access the abstract class, it must be inherited from another class. Let's convert the animal class we use in the polymorphism chapter to an abstract class. Example. Now coming to the example. Public abstract class animal, public abstract method we have declared, that previous one. Now class pig is extending the property of animal class. Public void animal sound method. Now into that pig class we are extending the property of that abstract animal class. Now all the property comes into the pig class, like that animal sound is coming into that here, comes here. Now that sleep method also coming here. Now public void animal sound, look at this, that abstract method we have declared within the abstract class. That method abstract method does not have the body because we all know that abstract method does not have any body. We need to provide the body within the subclass. So we are following the protocol basically. After extending the property of animal class into the pig class, here just because now the pig class, just because pig class is extending the property of abstract animal class, now that means that pig class is became the subclass of abstract animal class. That means that animal class is the parent class and pig class is the subclass or the child class. Now that body we need to provide where that body for that abstract method we need to provide where we need to provide it in the subclass, under the subclass. So we are doing public void animal sound. How we can how we will provide the body public void animal sound. Here we will not write that particular abstract keyword because here I am providing the body public void animal sound method. Now here I am giving the body of animal sound is provided here, that we have written something here. And that means that abstract class we are inherited to the pig class and abstract method proper body we have provided under that subclass, sub pig class. Another class we have declared class main, public static void main, that main method we have declared. Now we are creating the object pig, my pig equals to new pig. Now we are creating the object for the pig class. Using the object name, we are calling the animal sound method because that pig class is the new owner of that animal sound method because we have inherited the property of that animal sound abstract class method, the property we have inherited. So after doing the inheritance, after doing the extraction to the, we have extracted the property to the pig class or inherited the property to the pig class. So pig class is the owner. So when the pig class is the owner of those properties, so using the object name of that particular pig class, we can access that property. So we are doing the thing. MyPic dot animal sound method, MyPic dot sleep method. The sleep method is also in the abstract class, but this is not the this is the normal class, the normal method, not the abstract method. MyPic dot sleep we are calling. That is the basically abstraction. Is it clear? Hello.
Yes,
Sir,
sir.
question. Sir,
Yes.
question.
হ্যাঁ বলো হ্যালো
Yes, yes. Sir, why there are two classes
where which one
in the main class? Sorry, in the animal class.
In the animal class, there is not two class. There is in the animal
Two
class
methods.
two method. Any
There
in
are two.
any yeah, there are one is an abstract method, one is a normal method. Why there is two methods? You can declare as many as you want. If your need is that 100 method you want to declare, you can do. If you want to 1000 method you want to declare, you can do. There is no limitation that you can only declare only one method against one class. That is not mandatory. Why I have declared, basically why I have declared two methods here, because one, look at this, one is the abstract method, one is non-abstract method. And what is the difference? If I am not declaring a normal method, you will not be able to differentiate between the abstract method and the normal method. Look at this, abstract method does not have the body, but the normal method having the body, that using the curly braces from here to here, and within that body we have written here. But the abstract method does not have any body, because this is the rule, that abstract method does not have any body. That method body we need to provide, where we need to provide, within the subclass. Animal class is the parent class. Just because pig class is extending the property of animal class, that means that pig class is the subclass of animal class. And as per the rule, where we need to give the, or where we need to provide the body of that particular abstract method under the subclass. So we are providing the abstract method body under the subclass, under the pig class. Pig class is the subclass. So here pig class is the subclass of animal abstract class. That's why under the pig class we are providing the body. How we are providing the body? Public void animal sound, and we are providing the body using the curly braces. Just simply we here we will write the body, and here in the time of providing the body, in that time we will not write that particular abstract keyword. Okay, this is the syntax basically. And the number of method, as many you want, you can declare the method. If you want 20, you can declare. There is no bar. As per your need.
Okay, sir.
Okay. Now execute that particular example.
Done, sir.
Everyone done? Hello.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Why and when to use that abstract class and method to achieve security, hide certain details, and only show the important detail with the interfaces, which is also learned. Okay, so basically the next topic will be the interface. That was the last topic for today. In the next session we are starting from the Java interfaces. Okay, so now let me
Okay.
stop the
Okay, sir.